Howdy gamers, hope everyone's doing well. Don't mind this. This is the cape that I wore when I was doing Space Ghost and met George Lowe. And I'm really upset about him passing, so I'm using it as a means to condense my sound further. So hopefully, you know, he can he can continue to help me in my voice acting endeavors. Um, it's been about a week since the last propaganda, and now it's time for more of that. More propaganda. We like that, right? Um, Yippee. 23. Investigation and study. Everyone engaged in practical work must investigate conditions at the lower levels. Such investigation is especially necessary for those who know theory but do not know the actual conditions, for otherwise they will not be able to link theory with practice. Although my assertion, no investigation, no right to speak, has been ridiculed as narrow empiricism, to this day I do not regret having made it. Far from regretting it. I still insist that without investigation, there cannot possibly be any right to speak. There are many people who, the moment they alight from the official carriage, make a hullabaloo, spout opinions, criticize this, and condemn that, but, in fact, 10 out of 10 of them will meet with failure. For such views or criticisms, which are not based on thorough investigation, are nothing but ignorant twaddle. Countless times our party suffered at the hands of these imperial envoys, who rushed here, there, and everywhere. Stalin rightly says that theory becomes purposeless if it is not connected with revolutionary practice. And he rightly adds that practice gropes in the dark if its path is not illumined by revolutionary theory. Nobody should be labeled a narrow empiricist except the practical man who gropes in the dark and lacks perspective and foresight. To take such an attitude is to seek truth from facts. Facts are all the things that exist objectively. Truth means their internal relations, that is, the laws governing them, and to seek means to study. We should proceed from the actual conditions inside and outside the country, the province, county, or district, and derive from them, as our guide to action, laws which are inherent in them and not imaginary. That is, we should find the internal relations of the events occurring around us. And in order to do that, we must rely not on subjective imagination, not on momentary enthusiasm, not on lifeless books, but on facts that exist objectively. We must appropriate the material in detail, and, guided by the general principles of Marxism-Leninism, draw correct conclusions from it. To behave like a blindfolded man catching sparrows, or a blind man groping for fish, to be crude and careless, to indulge in verbiage, to rest content with a smattering of knowledge. Such is the extremely bad style of work that still exists among many comrades in our party, a style utterly opposed to the fundamental spirit of Marxism-Leninism. Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Stalin have taught us that it is necessary to study conditions conscientiously and to proceed from objective reality and not from subjective wishes. but many of our comrades act in direct violation of this truth. You can't solve a problem? Well, get down and investigate the present facts and its past history. When you have investigated the problem thoroughly, you will know how to solve it. Conclusions invariably come after investigation, and not before. Only a blockhead cudgels his brains on his own, or together with a group, to find a solution or evolve an idea without making any investigation. It must be stressed that this cannot possibly lead to any effective solution or any good idea. Investigation may be likened to the long months of pregnancy, and solving a problem to the day of birth. To investigate a problem is, indeed, to solve it. With the Marxist-Leninist attitude, a person applies the theory and method of Marxism-Leninism to the systematic and thorough investigation and study of the environment. He does not work by enthusiasm alone, but, as Stalin says, combines revolutionary sweep with practicalness. The only way to know conditions is to make social investigations, to investigate the conditions of each social class in real life. For those charged with directing work, the basic method for knowing conditions is to concentrate on a few cities and villages according to a plan and, using the fundamental viewpoint of Marxism, i.e., the method of class analysis, make a number of thorough investigations. A fact-finding meeting need not be large. From 3 to 5 or 7 or 8 people are enough. Ample time must be allowed, and an outline for the investigation must be prepared. Furthermore, one must personally ask questions, take notes, and have discussions with those at the meeting. Therefore, one certainly cannot make an investigation, or do it well, without zeal, a determination to direct one's eyes downward, and a thirst for knowledge, and without shedding the ugly mantle of pretentiousness and becoming a willing pupil. A commander's correct dispositions stem from his correct decisions. His correct decisions stem from his correct judgments, and his correct judgments stem from a thorough and necessary reconnaissance, and from pondering on and piecing together the data of various kinds gathered through reconnaissance. He applies all possible and necessary methods of reconnaissance, and ponders on the information gathered about the enemy's situation, discarding the dross and selecting the essential, eliminating the false and retaining the true, proceeding from the one to the other, and from the outside to the inside. Then he takes the conditions on his own side into account, and makes a study of both sides and their interrelations, thereby forming his judgments, making up his mind, and working out his plans. Such is the complete process of knowing a situation which a military man goes through before he formulates a strategic plan, a campaign plan, or a battle plan. 24. Correcting mistaken ideas. Even if we achieve gigantic successes in our work, there is no reason whatsoever to feel conceited and arrogant. Modesty helps one to go forward, whereas conceit makes one lag behind. This is a truth we must always bear in mind. With victory, certain moods may grow within the party. Arrogance, the airs of a self-styled hero, inertia, and unwillingness to make progress, love of pleasure, and distaste for continued hard living. With victory, the people will be grateful to us, and the bourgeoisie will come forward to flatter us. It has been proved that the enemy cannot conquer us by force of arms. However, the flattery of the bourgeoisie may conquer the weak-willed in our ranks. There may be some communists who were not conquered by enemies with guns and were worthy of the name of heroes for standing up to these enemies, but who cannot withstand sugar-coated bullets. They will be defeated by sugar-coated bullets. We must guard against such a situation. Many things may become baggage, may become encumbrances if we cling to them blindly and uncritically. Let us take some illustrations. Having made mistakes, you may feel that, come what may, you are saddled with them, and so become dispirited. If you have not made mistakes, you may feel that you are free from error, and so become conceited. Lack of achievement in work may breed pessimism and depression, while achievement may breed pride and arrogance. A comrade with a short record of struggle may shirk responsibility on this account, while a veteran may become opinionated because of his long record of struggle. Worker and peasant comrades, because of pride in their class origin, may look down upon intellectuals, while intellectuals, because they have a certain amount of knowledge, may look down upon worker and peasant comrades. Any specialized skill may be capitalized on, and so may lead to arrogance and contempt of others. Even one's age may become ground for conceit. The young, because they are bright and capable, may look down upon the old, and the old, because they are rich in experience, may look down upon the young. All such things become encumbrances, or baggage if there is no critical awareness. Some comrades in the army have become arrogant and high-handed in their behavior towards the soldiers, the people, the government, and the party, always blaming the comrades doing local work, but never themselves, always seeing their own achievements, but never their own shortcomings, and always welcoming flattery, but never criticism. The army must endeavor to eradicate these faults. Hard work is like a load placed before us, challenging us to shoulder it. Some loads are light, some heavy. Some people prefer the light to the heavy. They pick the light and shove the heavy onto others. That is not a good attitude. Some comrades are different. They leave ease and comfort to others, and take the heavy loads themselves. They are the first to bear hardships, the last to enjoy comforts. They are good comrades. We should all learn from their communist spirit. There are not a few people who are irresponsible in their work, preferring the light to the heavy, shoving the heavy loads onto others, and choosing the easy ones for themselves. At every turn they think of themselves before others. When they make some small contribution, they swell with pride and brag about it for fear that others will not know. They feel no warmth towards comrades and the people, but are cold, indifferent, and apathetic. In fact, such people are not communists, or at least cannot be counted as true communists. Those who assert this kind of independence are usually wedded to the doctrine of me first, and are generally wrong on the question of the relationship between the individual and the party. Although in words they professed respect for the party, In practice, they put themselves first and the party second. What are these people after? They are after fame and position and want to be in the limelight. Whenever they are put in charge of a branch of work, they assert their independence. With this aim, they draw some people in, push others out, and resort to boasting, flattery, and touting among the comrades, thus importing the vulgar style of the bourgeoisie political parties into the Communist Party. It is their dishonesty that causes them to come to grief. I believe we should do things honestly, for without an honest attitude, it is absolutely impossible to accomplish anything in this world. Communists must grasp the principle of subordinating the needs of the part to the needs of the whole. If a proposal appears feasible for a partial situation, but not for the situation as a whole, then the part must give way to the whole. Conversely, if the proposal is not feasible for the part, but is feasible in the light of the situation as a whole, again the part must give way to the whole. This is what is meant by considering the situation as a whole. Pleasure-seeking. In the Red Army, there are also quite a few people whose individualism finds expression in pleasure-seeking. They always hope that their unit will march into big cities. They want to go there not to work, but to enjoy themselves. The last thing they want is to work in the red areas where life is hard. We must oppose the tendency towards selfish departmentalism by which the interests of one's own unit are looked after to the exclusion of those of others. Whoever is indifferent to the difficulties of others refuses to transfer cadres to other units on request, or releases only the inferior ones, using the neighbor's field as an outlet for his overflow, and does not give the slightest consideration to other departments, localities, or people. Such a person is a selfish departmentalist who has entirely lost the spirit of communism. Lack of consideration for the whole and complete indifference to other departments, localities, and people are characteristics of a selfish departmentalist. We must intensify our efforts to educate such persons and to make them understand that selfish departmentalism is a sectarian tendency which will become very dangerous if allowed to develop. Liberalism manifests itself in various ways. To let things slide for the sake of peace and friendship when a person has clearly gone wrong, and refrain from principled argument because he is an old acquaintance, a fellow townsman, a schoolmate, a close friend, a loved one, an old colleague, or old subordinate. Or to touch on the matter lightly instead of going into it thoroughly so as to keep on good terms. The result is that both the organization and the individual are harmed. This is one type of liberalism. To indulge in irresponsible criticism in private instead of actively putting forward one's suggestions to the organization. To say nothing to people to their faces but to gossip behind their backs, or to say nothing at a meeting but to gossip afterwards. To show no regard at all for the principles of collective life, but to follow one's own inclination. This is a second type. To let things drift if they do not affect one personally. To say as little as possible while knowing perfectly well what is wrong. To be worldly wise and play safe, and seek only to avoid blame. This is a third type. not to obey orders, but to give pride of place to one's own opinions, to demand special consideration from the organization, but to reject its discipline. This is a fourth type. To indulge in personal attacks, pick quarrels, vent personal spite, or seek revenge instead of entering into an argument and struggling against incorrect views for the sake of unity or progress or getting the work done properly. This is a fifth type. To hear incorrect views without rebutting them, and even to hear counter-revolutionary remarks without reporting them, but instead to take them calmly, as if nothing had happened. This is a sixth type. To be among the masses and fail to conduct propaganda and agitation, or speak at meetings, or conduct investigations and inquiries among them, and instead to be indifferent to them and show no concern for their well-being, forgetting that one is a communist and behaving as if one were an ordinary non-communist. This is a seventh type. To see someone harming the interests of the masses, and yet not feel indignant, or dissuade or stop him, or reason with him, but to allow him to continue. This is an eighth type. To work half-heartedly without a definite plan or direction, to work perfunctorily and muddle along. So long as one remains a monk, one goes on tolling the bell. This is a ninth type. To regard oneself as having rendered great service to the revolution, to pride oneself on being a veteran, to disdain minor assignments while being quite unequal to major tasks, to be slipshod in work and slack in study. This is a 10th type. To be aware of one's own mistakes, and yet make no attempt to correct them, taking a liberal attitude towards oneself. This is an 11th type. Liberalism is extremely harmful in a revolutionary collective. It is a corrosive which eats away unity, undermines cohesion, causes apathy, and creates dissension. It robs the revolutionary ranks of compact organization and strict discipline, prevents policies from being carried through, and alienates the party organizations from the masses which the party leads. It is an extremely bad tendency. People who are liberals look upon the principles of Marxism as abstract dogma. They approve of Marxism, but are not prepared to practice it, or to practice it in full. They are not prepared to replace their liberalism by Marxism. These people have their Marxism, but they have their liberalism as well. They talk Marxism, but practice liberalism. They apply Marxism to others, but liberalism to themselves. They keep both kinds of goods in stock, and find a use for each. This is how the minds of certain people work. The people's state protects the people. Only when the people have such a state can they educate and remold themselves by democratic methods on a countrywide scale, with everyone taking part, and shake off the influence of domestic and foreign reactionaries, which is still very strong, will survive for a long time, and cannot be quickly destroyed, rid themselves of the bad habits and ideas acquired in the old society, not allow themselves to be led astray by the reactionaries, and continue to advance towards a socialist and communist society. It is not hard for one to do a bit of good. What is hard is to do good all one's life, and never do anything bad, to act consistently in the interests of the broad masses, the young people, and the revolution, and to engage in arduous struggle for decades on end. That is the hardest thing of all. 25. Unity. The unification of our country, the unity of our people, and the unity of our various nationalities. These are the basic guarantees of the sure triumph of our cause. It is only through the unity of the Communist Party that the unity of the whole class and the whole nation can be achieved, and it is only through the unity of the whole class and the whole nation that the enemy can be defeated, and the national and democratic revolution accomplished. We shall solidly unite all the forces of our party on democratic centralist principles of organization and discipline. We shall unite with any comrade if he abides by the party's program, constitution, and decisions. This democratic method of resolving contradictions among the people was epitomized in 1942 in the formula unity, criticism, unity. To elaborate, it means starting from the desire for unity, resolving contradictions through criticism or struggle, and arriving at a new unity on a new basis. In our experience, this is the correct method of resolving contradictions among the people. Our army has achieved remarkable unity in its own ranks, and with those outside its ranks. Internally, there is unity between officers and men, between the higher and lower ranks, and between military work, political work, and rear service work. And externally, there is unity between the army and the people, between the army and government organizations, and between our army and the friendly armies. It is imperative to overcome anything that impairs this unity. 26. Discipline. Within the ranks of the people, democracy is correlative with centralism and freedom with discipline. They are the two opposites of a single entity, contradictory as well as united, and we should not one-sidedly emphasize one to the denial of the other. Within the ranks of the people, we cannot do without freedom, nor can we do without discipline. We cannot do without democracy, nor can we do without centralism. This unity of democracy and centralism, of freedom and discipline, constitutes our democratic centralism. Under this system, the people enjoy extensive democracy and freedom, but at the same time, they have to keep within the bounds of socialist discipline. We must affirm anew the discipline of the party, namely, 1. The individual is subordinate to the organization. 2. The minority is subordinate to the majority. 3. The lower level is subordinate to the higher level. And 4. The entire membership is subordinate to the Central Committee. Whoever violates these articles of discipline disrupts party unity. One requirement of party discipline is that the minority should submit to the majority. If the view of the minority has been rejected, it must support the decision passed by the majority. If necessary, it can bring up the matter for reconsideration at the next meeting, but apart from that, it must not act against the decision in any way. The three main rules of discipline are as follows. 1. Obey orders in all your actions. 2. Do not take a single needle or piece of thread from the masses. 3. Turn in everything captured. The 8 points for attention are as follows. 1. Speak politely. 2. Pay fairly for what you buy. 3. Return everything you borrow. 4. Pay for anything you damage. 5. Do not hit or swear at people. 6. Do not damage crops. 7. Do not take liberties with women. 8. Do not ill-treat captives. All officers and soldiers of our army must heighten their sense of discipline, and resolutely carry out orders, carry out our policy, carry out the 3 main rules of discipline, and the 8 points for attention, with army and people united, army and government united, officers and soldiers united, and the whole army united, and permit no breach of discipline.